3 years ago, on the second Sunday in May, I preached about the original intention of Mother's Day. It wasn't about celebrating mothers as domestic goddesses. It was about the state of the world and the beloved children of God. It was about the Christian women who knew their Bible and their God and were tired of watching evil snatch their children away. Perhaps it wouldn't fit so neatly on a greeting card, but Diane Butler Bass says we should be saying Happy Radical Mother's Day, because this day was the result of years, decades of activism by women coinciding with the women's suffrage movement and the labor movements at the turn of the 20th century. How did this radical day become about getting women to take it easy? There are 3 women in particular who are credited with the founding of the modern Mother's Day. Anne Reeves, a Christian with chutzpah from Virginia, in 1858, she founded the Mother's Day Work Clubs, an organization of women determined to improve the communities they lived in. And when the Civil War broke out, she urged her Mother's Day work clubs to declare themselves neutral pacifists and provide care and aid to both sides. Her radical stance made her about as popular with some Americans as the founders of Black Lives Matter are with many whites today. And then a few years later, in 1872, another Christian named Julia Ward Howe, who was inspired by Anne Reeves, wrote the Mother's Day Proclamation. The Mother's Day Proclamation. And in it, she urged women to leave their homes for one day a year to work for peace on that day in their communities. And in her manifesto, she cried out, "Arise, arise, women, all you women who have hearts, whether your baptism be that of water or of tears. Say firmly, our husbands shall not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity and mercy and patience. We, women of one country, will be too tender to those of another country to allow our sons to be trained up to injure theirs. From the bosom of this devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own, and it says, disarm, disarm. Let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of counsel. Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them solemnly take counsel with each other as the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, each bearing after their own time the sacred impress, not of Caesar, but of God. And 30 years later, in May 1907, Anne Reeves' daughter, Anna Jarvis, decided to hand out 500 white carnations during a church service at Andrews Methodist Episcopal Church. And the carnations were in honor of her mother. And since Anne had been a pacifist, Anna chose white. A year after the worship service, honoring this social justice warrior, the church decided to hold a yearly worship service in May to honor the commitment of mothers. In 1914, President Wilson signed Mother's Day into law. Meanwhile, the florists who couldn't keep up with the demand for white carnations started to introduce red ones. Card companies started sentimentalizing the day. And all of this broke Anna Jarvis's heart as she watched the meaning of her Mother's Day co-opted by commercialism and patriarchy. And while we still honor the contributions of women on Mother's Day, we now do it by telling women to lie down in bed. Lie down in bed rather than arise, arise, all you broken-hearted women, and set the world right. We now honor their domestic, familial roles instead of their contributions to equity, justice, and peace. And 3 years ago, when I told you the Mother's Day origin story, I worried that some exhausted mother from the pew might throw their shoe at me and shout, "Oh, for heaven's sakes, let me have my one damn day a year of breakfast in bed, lady." But no one did. No one did. And this year, I counted exactly one person, one, who told me that they were looking forward to Mother's Day, and 17 who said that they had mixed or negative emotions about this holiday, and that gave me pause. What is going on with our relationship to this day? The one who was excited about Mother's Day was a lesbian who'd never thought she'd be able to have children. She's in a committed relationship now that includes being a stepmom to 2 kids. "Don't take Mother's Day away from me," she said. "I just got here." And I agree with her sentiment. Let's not tell each other what to feel about Mother's Day. Some of us are tired of pretending that everything is okay, that there's only one way to feel about your mother, about being a mother, about not being a mother. Some of us love the pampering, and some of us cringe when you tell us to shush up and enjoy our eggs when what we want to do is rise up and smash the patriarchy. Some of us are ready for both eggs in bed and protests in the streets. And many of us are tired, languishing and stressed, and in need of the motherly wing of God so that we might catch our breath, lick our wounds, prepare for what lies ahead. There are as many feelings and needs today as there are hearts beating in humans' chests. And it's clear that the saccharine sentiment of Hallmark will not be enough this year, if it ever was. We need the heartbreak. We need the heartbreak of mothers like Anne and Julia and Anna, who despite living through the carnage of their civil war, saw hope and possibilities for peace on the horizon. We need the cry and comfort of Christ, who despite living through the oppression of Rome, knew suffering would not have the last word. We need people of faith today who, despite the virus, the poverty, the racism, the wars, know that we are building a kingdom of peace. We need the cry of the one who long before the night wrapped her loving arms around us and to this day sows seeds of hope into the barren hillsides of our despair. We need that ancient love that rolls on in us and in others. The world is weary and the suffering is all around us. And if you and I have the luxury of despair, then we also have the power to make a difference. This Mother's Day, I invite you to spend your flower money on something that inspires you, something that empowers you, something that makes you hopeful once more. Maybe it's the children like Autumn and Greta and Malala. Maybe it's the bailout black mamas for Mother's Day project, or maybe it's putting an end to the murder and the disappearance of Indigenous women. Find something that makes you hopeful, something that inspires you, something that empowers you. This year, I donated to the Mission and Services Make Mother's Day More Meaningful campaign. And when they asked me who I was honoring, I typed in the good people at Windermere United, the followers of God in Toronto West who will help one another break free from the bonds of pandemic fear and the lockdown ennui. You. Friends, the truth is that burnt toast and a smile from a 6-year-old on Mother's Day is great. But even greater is knowing that that 6-year-old has a future full of passionate love for the world. Where your heart is, there you will find your treasure. While climbing into bed for the day sure feels good. I've been doing that since the last round of lockdowns began. It's time to shake off the toast crumbs, the fragments of despair, the dust of malaise, and rise up to meet the Christ in the places where the abundant life is found. Holy people, you were made in the image of God the Mother. Yes, she is there to wipe your tears, to feed your soul, to provide a heavenly home, but she is much, much more than that, and so are you. This day and every day. May the God of inspiration fill you with the Divine Mother's passion for justice, for equity, for love, for peace. Amen.